I'm Callie Feyen. We're going to study 3 stations of the cross today. They are judgment and humiliation and suffering. So, not great words, but
my 3 favorite.
This is where we are in the story. So, happy Sunday, everybody.
Callie, what about temptation?
Where's
those cookies?
No, we did temptation last week. You said you had a lot of fun in temptation, and you don't want to talk about that.
That's all I'll talk about.
Yes. Well, I'm going to focus on the word humiliation and tell you a little bit about that, and then we'll go through some more poetry and art. All right. I do want to show you. I feel like it's in the way if I...
It's fine.
Okay?
It's good.
All right. So I want to start with the image that Catherine Burleson came up with for humiliation.
Yep.
And it's also right there as well.
Okay.
And this is the point of the story where...
They take his clothes and burn them off.
Yeah. Where they take his clothes, they put him in a robe, and they give him the crown of thorns. So, this was the first image that Catherine Burleson created for this project, and I find this interesting for a couple of reasons. First, the word she focuses on is humiliation, and I'm not suggesting that any of these words are easy to sit with. But this one conjures up the face I can't stop from flushing, the tears I don't want to fall, the dull ache in my stomach that points to a truth I didn't want to get out, a truth I didn't want to own. Something about me isn't good, isn't right. Would you want to begin with that? Second, Burleson begins in the middle of the story. To say that I'm uncomfortable when things are out of order is like saying that probably hitting a hornet's nest with a baseball bat and sticking around to see what happens is not a good idea. Order is my love language. Frankly, disorder equals humiliation, and I'm not interested in either. Thank you very much. Burleson writes a couple of things that intrigue me, though. First, she writes that she finds inspiration in the mundane or common, that it is in the basic, rinsing fruit for breakfast, zipping up a rain jacket on the 80th day of March, mud softening so that messy growth is everywhere, seeping onto the sidewalks and into our clothes, that beauty, the profound, and art come from. Burleson then suggests that the art we create from the common and the mundane allows for a new reality, that it punches a hole in the sky. My youngest daughter, Harper, is the only person I know who can find 4-leaf clovers. And what's a bit maddening is she's not even looking for them. Finding magic in the mess, in the mundane, in the common is her baseline. She once told me that her superpower is taking a small thing and turning it into something huge, and I agreed. I can also relate. Once we moved to Ann Arbor, she didn't find as many 4-leaf clovers, but she did find a fairy village on 4th and William, and fairy doors in the libraries, at ice cream shops, and storefronts. Fairies were alive and well in her new hometown, and soon in our backyard, at the foot of our fireplace mantel, and her bedroom. Shoeboxes were houses, bottle caps became sidewalks, tissues were bedspreads. All kinds of what the 3 of us declared as trash was to Harper treasure. I often think putting Harper in a room with Marie Kondo would be an award-winning reality TV show. One afternoon, I spent a bit of time in her room turned fairy wonderland. At first glance, and many glances after that, Harper's room is a mess. She sees no reason for dresser drawers, a laundry basket, or really, a trash can. It is very, very difficult to tell where imagination ends and reality begins for Harper. They are so intertwined that I think one cannot exist without the other. The village Harper made was for the Lost Fairies, the ones that wandered, the ones that didn't have a place to call home. Because of this, she'd written little notes next to the refrigerator and the bathtub, for example, to let them know this place is for them. One note made it clear that no payment was necessary, but if they felt so inclined to say thank you, a little beauty is always appreciated. Isn't that how it should be? Isn't that what we're called to do? Make those who are lost, who wander, who don't have a home or feel at home comfortable for a time so that they can spread beauty into the world again? In one home, Harper had cut a hole in what was the roof and taped plastic wrap to it, then put the cardboard back. She let the fairies know that this was a magic cutout wall, but not to worry, because while it's not hidden, non-dreamers will just see a skylight. Those that can't look beyond what to what could be, those that don't believe what is can make way for what could be, will stay where they are, enjoying the view, because it is, after all, dangerous to break through glass. But the world and all the magic it holds is waiting for all of us who dare to even so much as glance at the mess, who observe the mundane and the common, who punch a hole in the sky to make way for a new reality. So today we're going to try to punch some holes in the sky. And I have a new type of poem for you to try out. It's called a bio poem. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's pretty formulaic, and the directions are on the table. Basically what you do is you take one person in the story and you complete the lines for all 10 lines. So it starts with their first name and it ends with their last name. And line 2 is 3 or 4 adjectives that describe the poem. Important relationship, daughter of, mother of, husband to, etc. 2 or 3 things, people, or ideas that the person loved. 3 feelings the person experienced. 3 fears the person experienced. Any accomplishments. 2 or 3 things the person wanted to see happen or wanted to experience. His or her residence, and then the last name. And there's an example for Rosa Parks if you want to take a look at it. So what I did was I took Judgment, the story for Judgment, which comes from the verse. Let me see if I can find it here. Oops. Matthew 27:11 through 26. This is where Pontius Pilate washes his hands of the whole situation. But the line that I honed in on was that Pilate's wife said she had a terrible dream that she suffered from, and she sent a note to her husband and said, please don't have anything to do with this. Let him go. And I'd never read that before. I never noticed it before. And so I wondered what it would be like to sit with who she was for a minute. And my bio poem was for Pilate's wife. And I found it really difficult to know what her motives were and know very much about her because it's just that one line. So it was interesting to sit with and consider what she was afraid of, why she suffered from the dream, and that the fact that she wrote a note to him, that she couldn't even walk up to him and speak to him, made me pretty sad. So the poem is vague, I think. I'm not super happy with it, but I think that also was a lesson for me in understanding what little control she had and what her place was. So Pilate's is the beginning. Observant, curious, brave, wife of Pilate, maybe loved her country, her home, her husband, who experienced suffering because of a dream, who feared for her husband, herself, and I think Jesus, who listened, thought, and attempted to change. What had she accomplished? What could she accomplish? And I think she was in Rome. And the end was wife. That was the last line. And I wanted to do that deliberately because we don't know what her first name is. And again, it makes me sad that we do not know what her first name was. We don't know much about this woman. We don't know her motives, but that line stuck with me. So that's the first thing that you can try. The second thing that I thought you might want to try is I've got the cardstock and glue sticks and all different kinds of coloring utensils. I also have stencils if you'd like to use stencils. I thought you could come up with an icon, an image, or take the word for either one of these words, judgment, humiliation, or suffering, and see what you can do to those words that might transform them, that might punch a hole in the sky. That's one of the things that Burleson wrote about with each of these words, was that she took the mundane and she brought that to a new reality, something new, light, redemptive. So what can you do with the word humiliation or the word suffering or the word judgment that is a hefty, heavy word, and how can you transform it? So that's what I'm going to send you off to do today. The 3 scriptures are not printed out perfectly, and I apologize for that. I had a bit of a problem with printing, but they're all right there for you, along with the directions for the bio poem. All the words and their definitions are lined up for you as well, and then there's cardstock on the table too. So. Right? I know. I felt it would have been cool to do like 1 word a week too. So I apologize for clumping them all together, but please take them home. Yeah, and actually I have the materials for last week too, so if you chose 1 word last week, I have all the other ones too. So yes, please feel free to take them all home. All right, I'll turn you loose for a few minutes, and then if anybody wants to share, you can share. Oh, and here's the book if you want to read her reflections at all. Feel free. I think the scriptures are on the wall as well. All right, if you guys want to come back to the chairs here. Anybody want to share what they came up with or what word they? Certainly don't have to.
Let's start.
Okay.
I'm doing some docent work at the museum, art museum in Urbana. And so we're starting a tour actually with Glacier Hills in April. And one of the things that I'm supposed to do is a work by a South African artist.
Uh-huh.
And she's done a life-size figure that's actually molded after her.
Wow.
And it's someone that's looking like both she has an apron on and looking like a slave, but also in sort of Victorian garb as well. So
interesting.
So kind of combination of that, and so while I was preparing, I was researching, and one of the images, she has a whole series she calls Sophie, and that's a name that she's given these women that she's portraying in different ways. And,
interesting.
the one that's at U of M is called Elsie, and Elsie was the name that one of her grandmothers was given. They always were given a Christian name. The masters didn't want to acknowledge their African name.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave them a white Christian name.
Yeah.
So Elsie was the name of that one, and also part of this Sophia series. So one of the ones that I saw that she had done was one of these women in this blue garb, but she was holding a piece of fabric which had Superman
Oh, nice.
on it. And the Superman could be interpreted either way, as that she was a strong person and brave, and or that her master and people that were suppressing her were the superhero.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a combination of how did she fit.
Wow.
So that sort of I put it under suffering, but the judgment, it could be,
Could be any of them, yeah. Those words are so intertwined within each other anyway, so.
Right, so
Yeah.
I did sort of fill in a lot of those things in the poem as, being brave, loyal, subservient. She was a slave to a master. The things that she loved were, she wanted freedom.
Yeah.
What was five? Feelings, tiredness, sadness, frustration. 6 was fears. She feared her master, probably. Loss, racism. And 7 accomplishments. Well, the sewing skills, that was something that these women had that their owners or masters did not have that skill. So they were,
Yeah.
So anyway, that was, and as far as the last name, nobody knew.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's when I get.
A couple of things. First of all, I find it interesting when an artist can make an image and it has 2 completely different interpretations, and you feel them both and you can see them both. I know I mentioned a couple weeks ago seeing Ivan Mistrovic's Jesus and the Woman at the Well sculpture, and at first I would sit there in the summertime because Jesse's lab was right behind it, and I would wait for him. We'd go out for lunch and then go on with our afternoon stuff, but I was sitting there for probably several weeks having no idea what it was I was looking at. And then when I realized what it was I was looking at, I kind of jumped up and looked as close as I could, because that is such a tense story, and it's always been one that I felt uncomfortable about, because the way that I've always read it was that that she ran away feeling ashamed, and it made me sad. But in this sculpture, he is the one who's leaning toward her. He has his one leg on the well and a hand that's sort of reaching towards her. And from one point of view, she does have her head bowed, but her back is so straight, and she has the jug and she's just resting. It's very graceful how she looks very strong, and it's almost like you could see the transformation. She looks a little, she doesn't look ashamed at all. She looks very confident. And I really liked that. And he was the one who was pursuing her, who wanted to know more about her, even though in the scripture it says he does know everything. But there's just something that made me want to know more about the story. And so then I learned that she actually, he was there to rest, but actually she went there. Usually the people went and got their water at the beginning or at the end of the day, and they met in the afternoon. And so she was going there when she knew nobody else was going to be there. She wanted a break too. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then the other thing that I loved that you did was that you took something that wasn't overtly in the Bible, and you applied it to what's going on in the world today, and which is the point, right? These stories are still relevant today. They're still happening today. So anybody else want to share? Don't have to.
Well, I just kind of briefly, I think I may have jumped ahead.
That's okay.
Sure, but I couldn't help but think about Simon of Cyrus.
Yeah.
And he's a figure who, he witnessed the judgment and the humiliation and suffering of Jesus. And so my bio poem about him, the word is let's see, glasses here. Let's see, Simon, Cyrene. Adjective to describe him, an obliging person, open-minded, empathetic, maybe.
I'm sorry, but what exactly did Simon the Cyrene do?
He was a countryman coming into the city, and I'm going to guess here. I believe, I think he was on a business mission.
Yeah.
Trades or something, there for a business opportunity.
And he just happened to be there
He
when
just happened to be there. Everybody's progressing to Golgotha, right? The place of the skull, and he's just, trying to go opposite direction, and whoa, there's this massive chaos, and obviously very angry, violent mob. Let's see, Simon, Arbor, yes, Simon. An important relationship, well, we don't really know, but I said stranger, countryman, coming into the city, 2 or 3 things or ideas about this person that he may have loved, but we don't really know, but business opportunity, travel, culture. He was from the country, but had some savvy about, curiosity about being in the big city.
Yeah.
And then 3 feelings the person experienced: panic, especially for himself, bodily safety,
Sure.
distress for Jesus. That must have been, very, very distressful, and then confusion. Maybe, confusion. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then 6, the fears, bodily harm, to get hurt, worry for his possessions, was going to get robbed, money belt, maybe he had a pack of furs with him to trade or something.
Right.
And then identity and accomplishments. That's an interesting one.
Right.
That's an interesting one. Well, I think I'm just assuming, I'm imagining, that's the word, that his accomplishments for that day may have been, in witnessing all this, he had the opportunity, and we don't know how it feels when you have a chance to sit down and go, oh, that's how someone else felt. The point of view. He had the opportunity. His accomplishment was expansion of himself, his new point of view. This is what I'm thinking of, what he went through. 2 or 3 things a person wanted to see or wanted to experience. Well, justice maybe, relief from suffering by Jesus, and order in the social setting. So, it's very violent and angry. Want to restore order, I imagine. And his residence, he's a countryman, we know, I believe from the scripture. And the last name, don't know, I put commuter.
Nice. I like it. I can't remember, was he told to help carry the cross, or did he just do it?
I think in the book, I have this book, it's a wonderful book.
Yeah.
It says that he was compelled.
Yeah.
So he showed
Compelled to
compassion.
you,
unlike
yeah.
Mom.
Yeah, but how would you, if it were me with my pack of pelts or something,
Right.
Assuming I'm going to do some good business and make some money for my family or something like that, I don't know. Eat some good food at my local favorite tavern. I would, I'd say I lost my train of thought, but I think that, I forgot the question.
I think, I was just curious if I never understand whether or not he was told to, or if he was, like you said, he was compelled.
Right, yeah, I don't know either, actually, I don't know either.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting about all these characters or people, is that we don't really know, and yet they had a huge part in all of these places, and I, growing up, I would hear, and even now I hear these words about calling. I was called to do this, and a lot of these people are like, I'm here and I'm just going to do this. And I think that's sort of the miracle of the story too, is that God is using us regardless of whether or not we feel that mountaintop experience or feeling. He's still using us in all of our inadequacies and inadequacies. I can't say it.
Yeah, well, I guess this Cyrus could have had, he had a choice. What if he said, I'm not carrying that,
I got stuff to do.
I'm out of here. He could have, so I guess maybe, sometimes the scriptures, God is giving us a choice.
Yeah.
We have choices we can make.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's great.
Well, I can't say my thoughts are profound. It's been said a bazillion times before, but I was thinking about humiliation and the twisted ceremony of the crown of thorns, and you know, they said it was a purple robe. Purple was an extremely expensive dye. So it was reserved for royalty, so they're really, really making fun of him.
Yeah.
So purple was more meaning Vic than it does. Now we can go to Joanne's or Michael's and get purple.
Sure.
Anyways, I didn't know whether to focus on Jesus, who was choosing to be humble rather than angry. And it took me far too many decades to realize that it's harder, it takes more strength to be humble than it does to be angry. And then I started thinking about, I'm sorry, I didn't really follow your format very well, but
That's okay.
the average guy in the mob, and I see mobs nowadays where they've just taken the wrong path. They're following the wrong leader, and it's just like a huge human weakness. It's kind of discouraging. I mean, like the average Russian soldier that's following the directions of so-and-so is following the direction of them. I mean, they're just, or other mobs that just, they're on the wrong track. And
January 6th.
Yeah, January 6th.
Exactly.
January 6th, yeah.
And the leaders, the Pharisees and so on, that are using that mob psychology to make the people act. You know, it's just, it's playing out nowadays and it played out here, and I'm very discouraged.
It is, it's discouraging. It's a mob. I mean, even the word to be, I think of something so active, and it's a force that I don't know what to do about. It's pretty scary.
Like, so it's nice that there's a guy like Simon,
Yeah.
who shows compassion. That's one guy out of how many?
Yeah, I mean, it was a courage, didn't it? Wait,
Yeah.
yeah, courage, I should have put
brave.
courage down.
Yeah.
Beth, your idea of talking about Simon coming in from the country, you wanted to get lost in the way the sermon today went. Okay, let's get lost. And in that loss, now, I can get a different message. I know where it comes from.
Yeah.
Don't care. I got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
He was going to
Yeah.
Vegas.
Yeah.
The purple made me think too, the same artist, Mary Sabande, one of her pieces was all these women that in actuality had happened, they were in a protest and by the police were sprayed with a purple dye because it was something that wouldn't come off.
Oh, wow.
So they could be recognized
Oh, my goodness.
easily. So.
This is what I love about slow, close reading, slowing down and, picking up on the word purple, for example, is all the things that come up from that. There's a reason why they used, they made sure that word was in the Bible because of all the meaning that comes from it. Yeah, anybody else?
Purple was such an expensive dye that the aristocracy or the royalty would not let commoners wear it. It was, it had a lot of significance back then.
You don't have to.
No. Everybody look at Dave. Oh, no.
I know. We'd love to hear from Dave.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, everybody look away.
What about
Harper, you have anything you want to?
I don't have anything to share.
That's okay. All right, well, I will finish with a prayer from one of the 3 words. I think I'll use the one from Humiliation. It's a short one, but I love it. Merciful God, be with me in times of humiliation and despair. Give me hope and let me know that I am always worthy in your sight. Clothe me in your love. Amen.